Welcome to the Matadoras No More Bull podcast. I'm Lizzie, and with me is Deana, and we're the co-founders, and our mission is to empower women to recognize toxic relationships, escape safely, and then finally heal.
Today we are sharing our story, not just to tell it, but to help others who might feel trapped, confused, or alone. Because trust us, we have been there.
So we're going to start at the beginning of when Deana and I started to interact and why the Matadoras started. So it all changed for me one weekend when my sister came to town. I was broken, hurting, ashamed. And I finally said it out loud. I think I'm going to leave him. That moment set everything in motion. My sister took charge. She got me a U-Haul, helped me pack. We had no plan, no place to go, just the certainty that I couldn't stay. When my husband got home from his trip that weekend and realized I was gone, he called me, devastated. I was trying to fix things, he said, and for a second I knew the feeling of feeling guilty because I still loved him. But deep down, I knew something just wasn't right.
And that's the hardest part, right, Lizzie? Convincing yourself that what you're feeling is real. It's okay to walk away, even if you don't have all the answers yet.
Exactly. At first, I didn't think our marriage was over, but then the red flags kept coming out. He refused to give me access to our Verizon account, and when I asked if he was talking to someone else, his response was, "What if I am? What are you going to do about it?"
Ugh, that moment.
That was it. That was the shift. I told him, release my phone. I'm not going through this again because I had gone through such an awful, painful marriage for 14 years. And this was my second one. So I said, I'm filing for divorce. And then things got really worse. He started making alarming statements, talking about harming himself. He even went to my son's home and threatened him. That terrified me. I reached out to his oldest son, told him what was going on, and his response was so calm. He said, "Thank you for letting me know. Is it okay if I tell my mom because she has 27 years of living with him?" So I was like, yeah, what did I have to lose? And minutes later, I got a message from you, Deana.
I remember sending that message, Lizzie. You are not crazy. You are not alone. And I know exactly what you're going through. And then I just poured it all out. I had been in Lizzie's shoes years before and gone through the same cycle with Rex. He was financially abusive, sexually addicted, and a terrible liar. My life was a constant cycle of chaos and pain. After 27 years, I had had enough and I filed for divorce. But when I found out he had moved on to someone else, I stayed quiet. I thought, she won't believe me. She'll just think I'm the crazy ex. When my son reached out and said, "Mom, Lizzie is leaving Dad and she needs to hear your story," I knew that it was time.
And that first phone call with you, Deana, changed everything. I remember sitting on the floor of my nearly empty house listening to your story. And I knew I had to go through with the divorce because this wasn't love. This was a pattern.
And that's the thing. We always think if they won't change for their kids, they won't change for us.
Exactly. And then came the final confirmation. My divorce was finalized. I went back to the house one last time to grab some of my things, and that's when I found them. A pile of cards and in another woman's handwriting. Every single one had a date on them as well.
That moment, oh my gosh.
Yeah, you were there in your own way because I remember calling and texting you. So 3 things had hit me if you remember at once. I was supposed to have left. Any guilt I had was totally gone at that point. Number 2 was she had no idea I existed. I don't know how I knew this. And then number 3, she needed to know. So Deana and I searched for months. We finally found her on Facebook, but we waited for my safety. I had to leave the state first.
Yeah, Lizzie and I were determined to reach out to her, but carefully so that we didn't expose her to any potential harm. We did find her on Facebook long before making contact with her. We studied her profile, we could sense her kindness, and we hoped that she had distanced herself from Rex by then. We didn't see any pictures of him on her Facebook page, so we kind of debated the best way to communicate. Finally, I just sent her a message, fully aware that it might land in some weird inbox because we didn't have a connection. It was a simple plea, an assurance that we saw her, that we knew she probably had not been aware of Rex's double life, and that we were here if she ever wanted to talk. And then we just waited. 6 weeks later, as I was rushing to be a speaker at a breast cancer awareness event, My phone rang. I was already late. I was nervous. I had not prepared properly. And here comes this call with Jane's name on it. My hands moved before my mind could protest, and I answered the phone. And this sweet, hesitant voice greeted me. "Is this Deana?" "Yes," I said, and my heart was pounding. She said, "I got your message, but I don't even know how I found it. I also don't understand. What are you trying to tell me?" I took a deep breath. "Jane, are you still with Rex?" "Yes," she said. "Okay," I said gently. "Did he ever tell you about me?" "Yes," she said. "I know about you. I know you were married. I know you have 4 kids. He and I have been together for almost a year." "Right," I said. "But do you know about Lizzie?" Silence. "Who is Lizzie?" she said. A sickening realization washed over me. "Jane," I said slowly. "Rex was married to Lizzie for 6 years. They just recently divorced." Now I could hear panic rising in her voice. "What? Where did they live?" I named the town, which wasn't far from where she was, and her voice started trembling. "You mean that little house where he told me he was taking care of an elderly couple?" "There was no elderly couple, Jane. That was Lizzie's home with him." I heard her breathe sharply, and I could feel the realization crash over her in waves. The man she loved had woven an intricate web of lies, effortlessly maintaining a double life. The seamless way he balanced both relationships, attending her children's games, meeting her family, and embedding himself in her world, left her completely shaken. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. She said, "We just got married." I said, "Jane, I am so sorry. We tried to reach you sooner." As she spiraled through shock and devastation, her immediate concern turned to her son. He was right then on a motorcycle trip with Rex out of state. Fear gripped her. Who was this man that she married? Now he was a complete stranger, and her son was with him out of state. Was her son in danger? I reassured her that while Rex wasn't violent, he was manipulative and dangerous in other ways. So she should act fast, but she didn't have to worry about his imminent safety. But she had one request first. I have got to talk to Lizzie. Lizzie and I had been praying for Jane for months, hoping she would see the truth. And when Lizzie called her, Jane didn't answer at first, but when they finally did connect, it was an emotional unraveling of lies. They pieced together trips, pictures, excuses, and strange disappearances. Everything clicked into place when they talked. By a couple of days after we had met Jane, she had retained a lawyer, and when Rex returned 2 days later, he was met with police cars, a packed vehicle, and a restraining order. His marriage was over just as quickly as it had begun. In stunned belief, he yelled out while the police were having a talk with him, "You didn't even hear my side of the story."
Couldn't believe when I heard he said that, because I thought there is no other side to the story. You lied, manipulated, and deceived 2 families. End of story.
Exactly. What other side of the story could there be? So Rex, stunned, of course, left town. But within weeks, he had already moved on, and social media revealed another woman. Jane, when she found out, attempted to warn her just as we had warned Jane. But this time, the message was rejected. "You guys are crazy," the woman said. But we knew better, and now so did Jane. And that is how this started. The Matadoras started with a painful, messy story that turned into something much bigger. Lizzie and I decided that we were not just going to escape the cycle for ourselves, but we were going to also help others break free. Because let's be real, toxic relationships don't just break your heart. They break your mind, your confidence, your sense of self, and your family.
Yeah. And that's why we do this, to remind women you are not crazy, you are not alone, there is a way forward, and healing is very possible. Because if you haven't lived it, it's easy to say, just leave. But we know it's never that simple.
So if any of this resonates with you, we are here for you.
We'll continue to share more stories, discussing the different types of abuse, how it affects your mental and physical health, and most importantly, how to move forward.
Because healing just isn't about leaving. It's about rebuilding your entire life.
And you don't have to do it alone.
You don't have to do it alone. Thank you so much for listening. And if this episode spoke to you, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, send it their way.
Remember, you are loved. See you next time. And thank you for listening.